We build fences, install cameras, and lock our doors. The modern home is designed to be a private physical and psychological sanctuary where we assume total security once we cross the threshold. This represents normalcy bias, our hardwired tendency to reject danger in familiar environments. Notice how warning signals are neutralized. When an anomalous sound occurs, our minds actively rationalize it. We tell ourselves the foundation is settling or the wind is acting up. We are going to analyze 3 case studies where threats bypassed physical defenses by moving incrementally closer. In each instance, the victims lived with the danger for months because their brains refused to accept it was there. Our own desperate need to feel safe remains the most significant failure point in any home security system. The first zone of defense is the property line. When a couple bought a home next door to some newly arrived neighbors, they assumed the physical gap between the houses functioned as a protective buffer. The homeowners initially ignored several red flags. There was heavy banging and loud music through the walls at midnight, followed by the neighbor returning home with severe damage to both sides of his car. They accepted his clumsy excuses because the alternative was too unsettling to consider. The proximity of the threat escalated during a staged break-in. Doorbell footage showed 2 men turning security cameras away while calmly discussing their targets in Polish. They fled before the police arrived, leaving the homeowners with a growing sense of unease. A week later, that buffer was shattered. During a robbery, the neighbor's own car was driven directly into the front door of the house as the same 2 men frantically loaded the vehicle with electronics. The neighbor surfaced hours later, beaten and covered in defensive stab wounds. He eventually confessed to underworld ties and begged for shelter from the people who were haunting him. A property line is a fragile boundary. It provides no protection when a neighbor brings the violence of the criminal underworld directly into a shared space. Moving the threat directly to the home's outer boundary, we look at a split-level house in a snowy Montreal suburb. Here, a 15-year-old girl's bedroom window looked out directly onto the backyard at ground level. Over the course of a year, she reported shuffling footsteps in the snow and heavy breathing heard through the gaps in her vertical window blinds. Because the disturbances were intermittent, she tried to convince herself they weren't real. Her father reinforced this doubt by citing the safe neighborhood and a closed, squeaky yard gate. By relying on the physical perimeter, he effectively convinced his daughter that the threat was just part of her imagination. That logic failed one night when she looked into the mirrored reflection of her sliding closet door. There, peering through the window blinds, was the dark silhouette of a man standing just outside the glass. During a winter windstorm, the father stepped into the backyard and finally caught the man standing motionless in the glow of the bedroom window. The intruder vaulted the back fence effortlessly and disappeared into the neighboring yards. When we trust our exterior walls implicitly, we risk providing a predator with an unchallenged observation deck to watch our lives for years. The most severe breach involves a threat that exists inside the physical structure itself. In an Alberta home, a teenage girl's bedroom was located in a recently renovated basement. Even when a threat is inside the house, normalcy bias remains powerful. At 2 a.m, the girl heard a clear human laugh coming from the wall next to her bed. She laid perfectly still for 30 minutes before convincing herself it was just sleep deprivation. While she was home alone babysitting her infant sister, the baby monitor broadcasted heavy footsteps from the upper floor, followed by a human shush and a loud crash. She grabbed her father's locked, unloaded rifle to rescue her sister and flee the house. When the police searched the property, they discovered a basement window standing wide open, with a desk chair positioned directly underneath it. Days later, she discovered the built-in bookshelf in her room was actually a hidden door. It led to a utility space containing food wrappers, a switchblade, and a tiny hole drilled into the drywall, pointing directly at her bed. Realizing that an intruder has shared your most intimate space in secret for months represents a total collapse of the home's intended purpose.
After the discovery, the trauma often centers on the timeline. Looking at this graphic, the focus shoots backward in time, illuminating the months and years where the threat was active but unseen. The victims must reconcile their memory of feeling safe with the reality that they were being watched. Every private moment they experienced was actually witnessed by someone hiding just inches away. In each case, normalcy bias worked in the intruder's favor. It shut down natural survival instincts and encouraged the victims to ignore their own senses. Physical locks and security cameras only work if we are willing to listen to the alarms they provide. Without that awareness, the perimeter is already gone.